So I had a really cool session this week with my model, you knew him. And we went out into these different outfits and different light and different settings. And it was just a fun collaboration session with lots of experimentation, my favorite kind. If you slow down, you're going to see what I'm going to show you in this video. And I'm going to give you some tips for that toward the end of the video. So stick with me. This won't be too long and it's really going to make you rethink. We know if we start seeing shadow in its correct way, like I talk about in the Shadow Hackers workshop all the time. I'll put a link to that in the description. In fact, I was thinking about this week, my upcoming workshop as I'm doing this session. And so I'm looking at the light and the shadow and what it's doing and how certain photos are more magical than others and certain just have this beauty, this glow, as I call it, the glow. We all know the glow. If you've shot people, if you've shot landscapes, if you've shot streets, it's usually occurring at sunset, at sunrise. It can be made artificially. It's kind of, you get this combination. This isn't quite doing it. You get this combination of backlight mixing with shadow. It's where the light meets the shadow and it creates this just radiating beauty that you see someone walking through, or you see a thing, or you put your model and you're like, wait, don't move. A lot of times it's the position of your camera and the lens in relation to that. So I got lots of good images from the session, but I'm actually just going to filter down to my red 5 stars, just so I can kind of show you some examples, not only the examples of the glow, but how I edit it. Now remember, anything you get in camera can be made even better with good editing. You actually can create the glow to a certain degree in post-production. And I'm going to show you, but the more you get the glow in camera, the more magical it is. So sure, I edited this a little bit. I used Filmus, I used Elegance, right? I brought my sky down a little bit. So here's me in camera looking at the raw file and we're seeing this photo here. But I immediately knew I had the glow. Oftentimes, when you have the glow, it's a very rapid moving thing. It happens at a wedding, at a portrait, when you're on the streets, and you can see there's like this rim lighting all the way around the subject. A lot of times, it's a backlit situation. And so then when I go and edit it and I'm using masks and I'm dialing things down, this is still the raw file, but you can see we have detail, we have grain, we're not clipping anywhere. There's this balance throughout the scene that's really showcasing the motion and the emotion. And a lot of photographers, they don't even really understand what the glow is. They go out and maybe they shoot a wedding and there's just a few photos and there's a certain time of day, yeah, we call it the magic hour, but only a few of those just have this kind of boom in your face. Wow, what did I do right? So how do you get the glow? The first thing I look for when getting the glow is when you see that light coming down the street. What's really happening, remember, it's about the shadow. So I'm looking for shadow and how the light's creating that shadow. But that beautiful sunset, it's about that too, because that's going to create the shadows. It's going to illuminate the road more than the sides. I can backlight my subject. Now, you can combine this and say, okay, I'm going to use the backlight of the sun, and then I'm going to put a strobe in the front. So you can put a strobe in so you can illuminate your subject more. A lot of times you have to expose down. So if you just go, oh, great sunlit backlight, now you have the lens and you're moving around. I will oftentimes grab vintage lenses for this because they're sharp, but in this softer, kind of moodier, creamier way a lot of times. You don't need the most razor sharp lens. You actually want things to kind of bloom and glow. Here's a photo taken facing the sun in those same moments. Now we don't have that same backlight, but you still have the glow. You see the glow, this is the hard thing about it. It's not 100% defined, but once you know to look for it, you're gonna see it. And once you start seeing it, you learn to find it in your lens. And yes, sometimes to get it just right, you gotta move a little. You want the branch to be brushing across in front of the sun. You want it to be hitting the hair just right. You gotta go up or down 5 inches, 5 centimeters, just to get it adjusted just right. If you look at this photo here, we have that kind of warm golden glow, and what's happening is because of the way the light is shooting down the street, there's more shadow behind. So what we're actually getting is kind of this 3-dimensional feel because of the shadow that really lets you see it. Now on the final edit of this, I actually went into Photoshop, right? Here's my film preset edit. It looks good, it's clean, it's nice. Here's raw file. So raw file. I think this is like a 400H edit. Pretty straightforward, looks good. But on my final, I said, well, you know what? I don't need a bunch of AI tools, but I can clone out kind of this empty space here so we have a clean wall behind. And then I use some pictorialist actions for some texture to kind of go with this kind of steampunk feel, right? So here's raw edited and here's this. Notice how I didn't actually edit the color and the nuance of this that much. We have a well-made photo in camera, and then I'm using my tools in post to enhance the glow. You can actually see the same here where I pasted the same settings. Even though this photo isn't super sharp, but kind of has that soft pictorial feel to it, we still have that kind of illumination, that looking down the street. It's actually taking shadow and light and it's creating emotion, because what's the rule? Photos should have feeling. How do we do that? With shadow, with interacting with people, with showing their souls, their character. Now, can you create the glow artificially by putting lights and things around? Yes, because you're creating drama. You're creating ambience. So if you look here, the sun's setting, the light's getting a little bit flatter, but I put a strobe back behind in the tree. I don't know if this is the greatest example because I like some of the other photos better, but you can see what's happening. So the glow is often a backlight. Now, I don't love here how I've let the horizon cut through the head. That's kind of the violation of a rule. But I actually moved right here because I wanted to get the setting sun right behind her hair and let the rest kind of be in shadow. Now I'll do some more editing on this. This is just a basic preset that I put on this. But the point being that it's okay to have shadow. It's okay if your model isn't the brightest thing in the scene. A lot of times when we're taking strobes and lights and we say, hey, put the model zone 6, put the model zone 7, the model has to be bright. And that's kind of a standard way to do a portrait. But I get a lot of great portraits when I start thinking about shadow and the fact that the model can be the shadow. The model doesn't have to be the bright point. So can you create the glow even when you don't have this beautiful setting sun or it's after sunset, but you're still trying to get that mood? Yes, you actually can, although sometimes it's not quite as magical and you have to do post-production more. If you look at this, I still have light, but my sun is setting. The model looks beautiful here. I actually put an old Russian Helios 44 version 3 on this. So you see this really soft kind of creaminess in the background. It's not a super sharp image, but it works. I went into Photoshop and used pictorialist actions and just kind of stacking those layers. By the way, if you have pictorialist, I just updated it to version 1.1 and it has some new updates. Now you can see this doesn't have the glow, right? This kind of has more of a gritty kind of look, which can be good, but it's definitely not the glow. Now I'm going to do a variant. I ran the Seim mix on this, but I'm going to run the Seim Sun Glow mix. The thing that you want to think about in post-production is you're softening, you're adding warmth. Like these are elements of the glow. A lot of times to me, the glow has a backlight of the hair of whatever subject you're photographing. But watch what happens here as you add more softness and more bloom and more warmth using this mix of all these layers that we've added down here with the actions, okay? So we got all this complex layering going on, and what it gives us is a more soft, glowing kind of feel. Now, when I was all said and done with this edit and going through and tweaking things around the way I wanted to, here was my raw file, and here was my final. Again, drawing attention to the subject and keeping that glow kind of rich and warm and beautiful. I did the same thing on these final shots. The sun's now behind and we're doing these final poses with the foliage really fading into the background. And here's my raw file with some film editing and some basics. And then I took it in and I did that same thing. I went to Pictorialist. I did some more refined editing to bring out that glow. Now, does this scene have the glow like I'm talking about here? No, but I'm still using the concept of that. I would say this scene does not have the glow, but by understanding how softness, how light bloom, how shadow works, we're able to use the principles of the glow. Is anything going to replace actually having the glow in a scene? No. When you see it, go for it. Sometimes it moves so fast you don't have time to set up strobes and things like that unless you've planned for it. If I'm out doing a session with a model or something like that, the sun's setting, I know I'm in that last 30 minutes. If I see the glow, even if I'm going somewhere else, I'll stop the car and I'll say, hey, get out, just walk down that road. I know I'm going to get the results, and you know you are too, because when you see the light like that, take advantage of it. The glow is where light meets shadow and they're just dancing perfectly. It can be shining through tree branches. It can be shooting down the street when you're out doing urban photography. It can be the way it lights the hair of a model. Now, here's one final tip for identifying that glow, whether you're shooting streets or portraits or landscapes. It doesn't matter. Don't look just at the subject. Look at everything around the subject, at the way the shadows are being created by the light. I will oftentimes do behind the scenes footage, and oftentimes this helps find the glow, because in these camera lenses that aren't completely perfect, you see lens flares and you see like that, and those can be good. Sometimes I'll use the vintage lenses on my main camera for that reason. I want a little bit of flaring. I want a little bit of blooming like we've been talking about. But look around at the scene, and if it's a subject that's movable, right, like a model, look at the scene and the shadows in it, and then move your model into the beams of light and shadow, kind of where they're intersect. Less photos. This is always going to make your photography better. Take less photos, less click, 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 and more take a breath, look around your scene, see how the sun, the light is moving, how the wind is moving things, what's your shutter speed. Think about all the things that are in motion around you and how they create emotion, and then move you and or your subject to align perfectly with that, and you will get the glow. You're looking for that mix of light and shadow, and when you find it, you'll know it. And as you start watching for it, you're going to see it pop out, and it makes the simplest things, the simplest scenes, the simplest outfits, the simplest sessions, it just turns them magical. And yes, it's okay to have some softness. Yes, it's okay to put an old vintage lens on that has a lot of bloom. These kind of things just enhance it. And like I showed you, we can enhance it in post as well with editing. But the better you get a photo in camera, the better it's going to be in post. I hope you guys go out and have some fun with this. Let me know in the comments. Hit that like, subscribe button. Do you see the glow? How often do you see the glow? And what do you do when you see it? All right, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.